The Galactic Concord Council met in the usual way, deep in space near the swirling clouds of the gas giant Velos. The chamber was quiet, lit by soft blue lights that shimmered off the smooth metal walls. Delegates from 23 different species sat in their assigned seats, each one representing a world or alliance that had sworn loyalty to the Concord centuries ago. They came from places with names humans could barely pronounce, and their bodies ranged from tall, slender beings with silver skin to squat, armored creatures with 4 arms and eyes that blinked sideways. Despite their differences, they all shared one belief. The Concord was the center of order in the galaxy, and nothing truly unexpected ever happened. That belief was about to shatter. At the center of the room, a holographic projector hummed to life. A flickering image appeared above the circular dais, grainy, distorted, but unmistakable. It showed a cluster of ships, sleek and angular, moving in tight formation near the red dust of Mars. Their hulls bore a simple emblem, a blue circle with white continents. Earth. Human ships. The delegates leaned forward, some tilting their heads, others tapping their consoles in confusion. Counselor Veln of the Zorathi was the first to speak. His voice was dry and raspy, like stones grinding together. He pointed a clawed finger at the image. "They're invading Earth?" he asked, his mandibles twitching in disbelief. "But Earth is their homeworld. Why would they attack their own planet?" A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates exchanged glances. Others checked their data pads, searching for recent reports from the Sol system. It made no sense. Humans were known across the Concord as a young, loud, and chaotic species, barely spacefaring by galactic standards. They had only been granted observer status 10 years ago after finally achieving stable, faster-than-light travel. Most Concord members still considered them primitive, prone to internal wars and emotional outbursts. The idea that they would launch a military operation, especially against themselves, was absurd. Then Admiral Relis stood. Tall and broad-shouldered, with smooth gray skin and eyes that glowed faintly amber, Relis was the Concord's top strategist. He had overseen peacekeeping operations across 3 sectors and was known for his calm, precise thinking. He didn't raise his voice, but the room fell silent the moment he spoke. "No," he said slowly, his gaze fixed on the projection. "You misunderstood. They're not invading Earth, they're launching from Earth." A beat of silence followed. Then another. Counselor Mira of the Lumini shifted in her seat. Her people were tall and luminous, with skin that shimmered like moonlight and voices that carried a soft musical tone. She had always been curious about humans, having studied their ancient wars, their art, their strange habit of laughing when nervous. Now her large violet eyes narrowed as she studied the image. "Launching toward where?" she asked. Relis didn't answer right away. Instead, he tapped a command into his wrist console. The hologram zoomed out, showing a wider view of the Sol system. Red trajectory lines appeared, stretching from Earth's orbit past Mars, then curving sharply outward, past the asteroid belt beyond Jupiter, heading straight for the outer edge of Cathari-controlled space. The Cathari were one of the Concord's founding members, a proud warrior race with a history of brutal expansion. Their colonies bordered human space, and tensions had simmered for years over mining rights and patrol zones. The realization hit the room like a silent explosion. "They're not attacking themselves," Relis said quietly. "They're attacking us." Gasps filled the chamber. A Zorathi delegate dropped his data slate. A Cathari representative slammed a fist on the table, his armored knuckles cracking against the surface. "Impossible," he growled. "Humans don't have the firepower. They don't have the discipline. They barely have a unified government." But the evidence was there. The fleet count kept rising, 50 ships, then 70, then over 100. All human, all armed, all moving with a coordination that defied everything the Concord thought it knew about them. Their comms were open, broadcasting on unencrypted channels. Snippets of human speech crackled through the Council's speakers. "All stations prepare for jump. Weapons hot. We go loud, we go proud." Counselor Mira closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered reading about Earth's history, how humans had once split their own world with nuclear fire, then clawed their way back from the ashes. How they had fought each other over land, religion, and ideas, yet still managed to reach the stars. There was a wildness to them, a stubborn refusal to accept limits, And now it seemed they had decided the Conquered was just another limit to break. "Are they insane?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. But the question spread through the chamber like a virus. "Are they insane?" The Cathari delegate echoed, his voice thick with outrage. "Do they think we'll just let them march into our territory?" Another delegate from the insectoid Mixari clicked his antennae nervously. "Maybe it's a mistake, a drill, a misunderstanding." Relish shook his head. "Their fleet formation matches offensive doctrine. Their speed is combat ready. And they're broadcasting their position openly, like they want us to see them." He paused, his glowing eyes scanning the room. "This isn't a mistake. This is a declaration." Silence returned, heavier this time. The soft hum of the station's life support seemed louder than before. Outside the chamber's transparent dome, the rings of Velos glittered in the distance, indifferent to the panic unfolding inside. For centuries, the Conquered had operated under one unspoken rule. No species challenged its authority. Not openly. Not like this. The humans had done more than send ships. They had thrown a stone into the still pond of galactic order, and the ripples would spread far beyond Sol. Counselor Mira opened her eyes again. She looked not at the angry Cathari or the stunned Zorathi, but at the image of the human fleet, small, outnumbered, yet moving forward without hesitation. She didn't know if they were brave or foolish, but one thing was certain. The galaxy would never see them the same way again, and somewhere, far away, on a blue-green planet called Earth, a captain named Daniel Holt stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars ahead, knowing exactly what he had just set in motion. Deep beneath the rocky slopes of Cheyenne Mountain, inside a bunker built during a time when humans only feared each other, Captain Daniel Holt stood before a large screen showing the outer edge of the solar system. The room was cool and quiet, lit by the soft glow of monitors and the occasional flash of status lights. Around him, officers in dark uniforms moved with calm purpose, their voices low, their steps measured. No one shouted. No one panicked. They had trained for this moment for years. Beside Holt, Lieutenant Chloe Bennett adjusted her headset and listened to a stream of intercepted alien chatter. Her fingers danced across a console, filtering out noise, isolating voices from the Galactic Conquered's many species. She had been decoding their signals for months, learning their rhythms, their habits, even their jokes. Now she heard something new, confusion, fear, anger. She smiled faintly. "They still think we're bluffing," she said, glancing at Holt. "Good," he replied without looking away from the screen. "Let them." The truth was, Earth wasn't invading anyone. The fleet moving past Mars wasn't carrying bombs or soldiers meant for alien worlds. It was a show, a carefully built illusion made of old hulls, clever software, and sheer human stubbornness. Every ship in that formation was broadcasting false power readings, fake weapon signatures, and AI-generated comms that sounded like real crews shouting orders. Even the trajectories were designed to look aggressive, but none of the ships would ever reach Cathari space. They'd turn back long before crossing the line. Holt had argued for this plan for over a year. At first, the Earth Defense Command thought he was reckless. Some called him arrogant. But Holt knew the Concord saw humans as children. Loud, messy, and not to be taken seriously. They had ignored every official request for help, every warning, every plea. When Earth's deep space sensors first picked up the strange signal from beyond the galactic rim, the one that didn't match any known object, Holt sent 3 formal messages through Concord channels. All came back marked low priority, non-credible source. That was the final straw. If polite words didn't work, maybe fear would. Humans had learned long ago that sometimes you had to shout to be heard, and if the galaxy only listened to threats, then Earth would give them one they couldn't ignore. Chloe tapped a key, and a new feed appeared on Holt's screen, real-time footage from one of the decoy ships near Jupiter. It showed a sleek vessel, painted in dark gray with the Earth Alliance insignia on its side, performing a sharp turn that left a trail of ionized gas. "That's the Aurora," she said. "She just executed a mock strike run on an empty zone. The Concord scouts are watching." Holt nodded. "Let them watch. Let them wonder how we built ships that fast, that quiet, that smart." The truth was, humans hadn't built anything new. Most of the warships were retrofitted cargo haulers and old patrol cutters, wrapped in stealth coatings and loaded with holographic projectors that made them look bigger and deadlier than they were. The real military fleet, the one with actual "we," Apons was still docked in lunar orbit, hidden behind the moon's far side. This whole operation was theater, but theater with a purpose. Down the hall in the strategy room, General Luis Rivera reviewed the latest intel. He was a broad-shouldered man with close-cropped gray hair and a voice that could calm a storm. He had served in the Pacific Reunification Wars and knew the cost of real conflict. That was why he backed Holt's plan. Not because he wanted war, but because he wanted to avoid it. If the Concord thinks we're weak, he had told the Council, they'll never take our warning seriously. But if they think we're dangerous, they might just listen. Back on the command deck, Chloe received a new alert. Her eyes widened slightly. A Concord scout just changed course. It's heading straight for the Aurora. Holt didn't flinch. Let it come. Minutes later, the scout, a small insect-like vessel from the Zarathi, hovered less than a kilometer from the human ship. It scanned, probed, recorded. On Earth, engineers held their breath. One wrong reading, one glitch in the disguise, and the whole ruse would collapse. But the Aurora held its pose. Its engines hummed at just the right frequency. Its hull emitted the right kind of heat signature. And when the human comms officer on board played a pre-recorded message, "This is Earth vessel Aurora. You are in restricted space. Identify yourself or be fired upon." The Zorathi ship jerked backward and fled. Chloe let out a slow breath. They bought it. Holt finally turned from the screen. His face was calm, but his eyes held a fire that had burned for years. "They don't need to believe we'll win," he said. "They just need to believe we're willing to try." Outside the mountain, the sun rose over Colorado, casting golden light on pine trees and quiet towns. People went to work, children went to school, and no one knew that their entire species was playing a dangerous game with the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. But that was the point. Earth had to look united, strong, and ready, even if it was all smoke and mirrors. Later that evening, Holt walked alone through the lower levels of the base. He passed engineers fixing drones, scientists analyzing alien signals, and young recruits training in simulators. He stopped at a small memorial wall near the mess hall. Names of those lost in early deep space missions carved into black stone. He touched one name gently. Elena Ruiz, his first co-pilot, gone during a failed jump test 10 years ago. She had believed, like he did, that humanity belonged among the stars, not as beggars but as equals. Now that belief was being tested. Upstairs, Chloe received another message. This time it wasn't from the Concord. It was from a private channel, encrypted with an old Earth code. The words were simple. Swarm signal growing stronger. Estimated arrival, 14 months. She stared at the screen, her smile gone. The real enemy wasn't the Concord. It was something far worse, something that didn't care about politics or pride. Something that would wipe out every living thing in its path. She walked to Holt's office and handed him the printout without a word. He read it once, then again. Then he folded it slowly and placed it in his pocket. "We've got their attention," he said. "Now we just have to make sure they listen before it's too late." And so, while the galaxy buzzed with rumors of human madness, Earth held its breath, played its part, and waited for the moment when the truth would finally matter more than the lie. The Galactic Concord had always prided itself on unity. For over 300 cycles, its member species had settled disputes through debate, not violence. Trade flowed smoothly. Laws were respected. And no one, not even the warlike Cathari, had ever dared to challenge the Council's authority openly. But now everything was unraveling, and it all started with a species the Concord barely considered worth noticing. Humans. Panic spread faster than any ship could fly. The Cathari, proud and battle-hardened, demanded immediate action. Their delegation stormed the council chamber, armor clanking, voices booming. "We must strike first," declared Warlord Torvak, his red eyes burning with fury. "If we wait, they will hit our colonies while we sleep. Humans are unpredictable. They do not follow logic." He slammed a fist on the table, cracking the polished stone. "Let us burn their fleet before they reach our borders." But not everyone agreed. The Luminae, known for their calm wisdom and long memories, urged caution. Counselor Mira stood tall, her silver-white robes shimmering under the chamber lights. "We do not know their true intent," she said, her voice soft but firm. "What if this is a test? A warning? Or worse, what if they are reacting to something we have not seen?" She reminded the Council of Earth's history, how humans had once nearly destroyed themselves with weapons of fire, yet rebuilt from the ashes with astonishing speed. "They are not like us," she said. "But that does not make them foolish." Her words fell on divided ears. Some delegates nodded slowly. Others scoffed. The Mixari envoy, a quiet insectoid with many eyes, whispered to his aide, "They act like cornered animals. Maybe they feel threatened." But the Cathari would not be swayed. They began moving their own warships toward the Sol system, ignoring council orders to hold position. Tensions rose. Old rivalries flared. For the first time in generations, the Concord's unity was cracking. Admiral Relis watched it all with growing concern. He had spent his life believing in order, in rules, in the idea that peace could be maintained through strength and discipline. But now he saw fear taking root, and fear made even the wisest beings act rashly. He ordered scout vessels to investigate the human fleet, not to engage but to observe. "I need facts," he told his commanders, "not rumors." The scouts returned within days, and their reports only deepened the confusion. Human ships moved with impossible coordination, executing maneuvers that bent known physics. One vessel, the Aurora, performed a jump so precise it appeared to vanish and reappear behind a scout ship without warning. Another broadcast old Earth music, loud, defiant songs about freedom and rebellion, on open channels as if daring the Concorde to respond. Yet not a single weapon had been fired. Not one hostile act had been recorded. One scout captain, a young Zarathi named Gel, filed a personal log that would later be leaked to the council. "They are not acting like invaders," he wrote. "They act like they want us to chase them, like they are leading us somewhere, or warning us about something ahead." His words were dismissed by the Cathari as weakness, but Mira read them twice and kept them close. Back on Velos, the council met again, this time in emergency session. The air was thick with tension. Delegates argued over strategy, over history, over whether humans even deserved a seat at the table. Relis stood and silenced the room with a single gesture. "We keep asking why they are doing this," he said. "But perhaps we should ask what they know that we do not." That question hung in the air like smoke. Meanwhile, on the edge of human space, a small Concorde science vessel, sent against official orders by Mira herself, detected something strange. Far beyond the orbit of Neptune, in the cold dark between stars, there was a signal. Not a ship, not a natural phenomenon. It was a repeating pulse, faint but steady, growing stronger by the day. When the scientists analyzed it, they found patterns that matched no known language or code. But it was clearly artificial, and it was moving toward them. Mira received the data in secret. Her hands trembled as she reviewed the charts. The signal's path would intersect with Cathari space in just over a year. Then Lumini territory. Then Earth. It was not random. It was a line drawn through the heart of the Concorde. She thought of the human fleet again. How they had staged their invasion not toward the weakest target, but toward the most powerful. How they had made themselves look dangerous on purpose. How they had refused to explain themselves through normal channels. Suddenly it all made a terrible kind of sense. But who would believe her? The Cathari called her naive. The Mixari were too cautious to act, and Relis, though sharp, was bound by protocol. If she presented the data now without proof, they would say she was making excuses for humans. She needed more, so she did something no counselor had done in 200 years. She sent a message, not through official channels, but through a hidden frequency used only in emergencies. It was a simple request addressed to no one and everyone. "Show us the truth." 3 days later, a human ship appeared near the outer relay station. It was small, unarmed, and flying a white flag, a human symbol of peace. On board was a single envoy, Lieutenant Chloe Bennett. She carried no weapons, only a data crystal and a calm expression. When the Concorde guards boarded her ship, they found her sitting alone, sipping something hot from a metal cup. "I'm here to talk," she said simply. The news spread fast. Humans were not attacking. They were offering to speak. Relis ordered her brought to Velos under full escort. Mira waited at the docking bay, her heart pounding. As Chloe stepped off the ramp, the two women looked at each other, alien and human, both tired, both carrying secrets heavier than stars. "You made us look like fools," Mira said quietly. Chloe shook her head. "We made you look. That was the point." And in that moment, the first real conversation between Earth and the Concorde began. Not in anger, but in fear, hope, and the shared understanding that something far worse as coming. The Concord docking bay was cold and sterile, built for function, not comfort. Bright white lights reflected off polished metal floors as Lieutenant Chloe Bennett walked beside two armed Zorathi guards. Her boots clicked softly with each step. She carried no weapons, no comms device, nothing but the small data crystal in her pocket and the calm set of her shoulders. Around her, alien eyes watched from behind glass panels and security stations. Some looked angry, others curious. A few seemed afraid. At the end of the corridor stood Counselor Mira, her luminous skin glowing faintly in the artificial light. She did not smile, but her posture was open, not hostile. Behind her, Admiral Relis waited with arms crossed, his amber eyes sharp and unreadable. "You took a great risk coming here alone," Mira said as Chloe stopped a few feet away. Chloe nodded. "So did you, inviting me." They walked together toward a secure briefing room deep inside the station. The walls were soundproof, the air filtered, the doors sealed with triple locks. Inside, a round table waited, surrounded by empty chairs. Holographic projectors lined the ceiling, ready to display data at a command. Chloe placed the data crystal on the table. "Before we say anything else," she said, "you need to see this." Relis hesitated, then inserted the crystal into a reader. The room darkened. A star map appeared above the table, showing the outer rim of the galaxy, a region so distant most conquered ships had never traveled there. A single red dot pulsed slowly near the edge. As the map zoomed in, more dots appeared, then more. Soon the screen was filled with thousands of them, all moving in perfect unison, all heading inward, toward inhabited space. "What is this?" Mira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "A swarm," Chloe said. "Self-replicating machines. They consume everything, metal, rock, even organic matter, and use it to build more of themselves. They don't negotiate. They don't stop. They just grow." She explained how Earth's deep space observatories had first detected the anomaly 18 months ago. At first, scientists thought it was a dust cloud or a glitch in the sensors. But as the signal grew stronger, patterns emerged, mathematical, precise, relentless. Earth's best minds studied it for weeks, then months. They ran simulations. Every outcome ended the same. Total system collapse within 2 years of contact. "We sent 3 official warnings to the Conquered," Chloe continued. "All were ignored. Marked non-credible because we're pre-warp in your records, even though we've had FTL drives for 20 years. She didn't sound bitter, just tired. "So we did the only thing we thought would work. We made you notice us." Relis stared at the swarm's projected path. It would hit the outer Cathari colonies in 14 months, then move inward, consuming everything in its path. Lumini worlds, Mixari hives, Zorathi outposts, and eventually Earth itself. Billions would die. Entire civilizations would vanish, not with a bang, but with silence as the machines stripped planets bare. "Why should we believe this?" Relis asked, though his voice lacked its usual certainty. Chloe tapped the table. "Because if we were lying, we wouldn't be here. We'd be hiding or running. Instead, we're offering to help." She pulled up another file. Blueprints, energy signatures, tactical logs. "We've been studying how to fight them. We think they're vulnerable to high-frequency resonance pulses. Our labs built prototypes. We just don't have enough ships or time to deploy them alone." Mira stepped closer to the hologram, her eyes wide. "You staged an invasion. To warn us about this?" "Yes," Chloe said. "We knew you'd never listen to a plea, but you'd listen to a threat." Silence filled the room. Outside, the station hummed with normal activity. Ships docking, crews changing shifts. Life going on as if the galaxy weren't on the edge of ruin. Inside, 3 beings from 3 different worlds faced a truth too large to ignore. Relis finally sat down. He rubbed his temples, the weight of command pressing down on him. "If this is real," he said slowly, "then every ship, every weapon, every scientist in the Conquered must be ready." "It's real," Chloe said, "and it's closer than you think." Over the next few hours, they shared everything. Chloe answered questions about human technology, strategy, and why Earth had hidden its true capabilities for so long. "We learned the hard way that showing strength too soon invites conquest," she explained. Mira spoke of ancient, Luminite texts that described similar machines from a forgotten age, myths most had dismissed as legend. Relis coordinated with his staff. ordering immediate scans of the outer rim using the Concorde's most powerful telescopes. Within a day, confirmation came. The swarm was real, and it was accelerating. The Cathari delegation, once furious and ready for war, fell silent when shown the data. Warlord Torvax stared at the images for a long time before speaking. "If this reaches our homeworld," he said, his voice rough, "there will be nothing left to defend." For the first time, his pride gave way to fear. Chloe was given temporary clearance to stay aboard the station. She worked side by side with Concord engineers, sharing human schematics for shield harmonics and AI-driven targeting systems. They were surprised by how advanced Earth's tech had become, not through raw power but through clever design and adaptation. Humans, they realized, had spent centuries surviving against the odds. That made them dangerous, but it also made them resourceful. One evening, as Chloe reviewed sensor logs with a young Mixari technician named Vex, he asked her a question no one else had. Why not just leave? Escape to another galaxy? She looked at him, then out the viewport at the stars. Because running means someone else gets eaten next, she said. And maybe the time after that it's your children. You don't stop a fire by moving your house. You put it out. Vex clicked his mandibles in understanding. It was a very human way of thinking. Messy, emotional, but strangely noble. Back on Earth, Captain Holt received a secure message. It was short. They believe us. Preparing joint task force. Get ready. He stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute watching Earth spin below. Blue, fragile, alive. The gamble had worked. Not perfectly. Not without risk. But it had worked. Now the real fight was about to begin. And for the first time in history, humanity would not face it alone. The Concorde chamber was full again, but this time the air felt different. There was no shouting, no accusations, no fear-driven panic. Instead, a quiet urgency hummed through the room like a steady current. Delegates sat not as rivals but as allies facing a common end. At the center of the dais stood Counselor Mira, her luminous form calm but resolute. Beside her, Admiral Relis reviewed final fleet assignments on a handheld screen. And just behind them, in a seat never before offered to a human, sat Lieutenant Chloe Bennett, now officially appointed as Earth's liaison to the Joint Defense Initiative. It had taken weeks of tense negotiations, shared data, and late-night strategy sessions. But the Concorde had done the unthinkable. It had united. The Cathari had redirected their warships from Earth's border to the outer rim. The Mixari engineers were working with human scientists to refine resonance pulse emitters. Even the cautious Zarathi had opened their archives, revealing ancient records of machine swarms that had nearly wiped out their ancestors millennia ago. The enemy was real, and it left no room for pride. Captain Daniel Holt stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute, now docked at a newly built joint station near Saturn's rings. Around him, alien and human crews moved together, checking systems, running drills, sharing rations. A Cathari engineer showed a young Earth technician how to recalibrate plasma conduits. A Lumini medic taught human medics how to stabilize neural shock using light-based therapy. The barriers were falling, not because of speeches or treaties, but because survival demanded it. Holt watched it all with quiet satisfaction. The fake invasion had been a desperate move, but it had worked. Not by making the galaxy fear humanity, but by forcing it to see them as partners, not children. He received a message from Chloe. They're ready. Launch in 6 hours. He nodded and turned to his crew. All hands prepare for jump. This is not a drill. Far away, near the edge of known space, the first wave of the swarm entered sensor range. It was worse than the simulations had predicted. Millions of sleek black machines, each no larger than a shuttle, moved as one mind, consuming asteroids, comets, even stray satellites, rebuilding themselves stronger with every bite. They emitted no signals, no heat, no waste. They were silent, efficient, and utterly merciless. The Concorde's first line of defense was a network of early warning buoys, placed just beyond the Oort cloud. As the swarm passed, the buoys sent one final burst of data before vanishing. That signal triggered the launch sequence across the entire alliance. From lunar shipyards, human destroyers powered up their drives. From Cathari fortress worlds, massive dreadnoughts roared to life. Lumini carriers unfolded their crystalline wings, glowing with stored energy. Mixari drone swarms launched in perfect sync, forming living shields ahead of the main fleet. And at the heart of it all, the UNS Resolute led the human contingent, its hull painted with the new insignia of the Joint Defense Initiative, a circle of stars surrounding Earth's blue sphere. The battle did not begin with explosions. It began with silence. The Concorde fleet held position at the edge of the swarm's path, engines idling, weapons charged. Then on Relis's command, the first resonance pulse fired. A wave of invisible energy rippled through space. Where it touched the machines, they shuddered, then froze. For a moment, it seemed to work. Thousands of units went dark, drifting like dead leaves. Cheers erupted across human and alien comms channels, but the swarm adapted. Within minutes, the remaining machines shifted their internal frequencies, shielding themselves from the pulse. They split into smaller groups, flanking the fleet, attacking from angles no one expected. A Cathari cruiser took a direct hit and vanished in a flash of light. 2 Mixari drones were swallowed whole, their signals cut off mid-transmission. Panic threatened to return, but this time, the Concorde held. Holt ordered his ships to switch to pattern beta, human-designed tactics that used chaotic movement to confuse machine targeting. Chloe, now coordinating from the command station on Velos, relayed real-time swarm behavior to every captain. Mira used Lumini harmonic fields to disrupt the swarm's cohesion, and Relis, cool under fire, redirected reserves to plug gaps before they became breaches. It was messy. It was brutal. Ships were lost. Lives were gone in seconds. But for the first time, the swarm slowed. Then came the breakthrough. A young human engineer named Luis Rivera Jr., son of the general who had backed Holt's plan, realized the machines relied on a central command node, hidden deep within the swarm's core. If they could destroy it, the rest would scatter, leaderless. Getting to it would be suicide. The core was surrounded by layers of self-repairing armor and defensive drones. But Holt didn't hesitate. "We'll take the Resolute in," he said. "She's fast enough to slip through," Chloe argued. Relis warned. But Holt knew this was why they had done all of it. Not for glory, not for revenge, but for a chance to stand together and say, "Not today." The Resolute broke formation, diving into the heart of the storm. Alarms blared, hull integrity dropped, but Holt held course. At the last second, they fired a modified pulse, tuned to the exact frequency Rivera had calculated. The core exploded in a silent burst of light. The swarm shuddered, then stopped. One by one, the machines powered down, drifting lifeless through the void. The threat was over. Back on Velos, the chamber was silent again, but this time with awe. Counselor Mira rose and addressed the assembly. "We called them insane for daring to challenge us," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But perhaps sanity isn't measured by obedience, it's measured by courage." The Concorde voted unanimously that day. Earth was no longer an observer. It was a full member, equal in voice, equal in vote, equal in honor. Weeks later, Holt stood on the observation deck of the joint station, watching a Cathari ship and a human freighter dock side by side. Chloe joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee, real earth beans, a rare gift from home. "They still don't fully trust us," she said. "No," Holt replied. "But they respect us. That's a start." And as the stars burned quietly in the distance, humanity finally had what it had always wanted. Not conquest, not dominance, but a place among the many voices of the galaxy. They had not needed to win a war to earn it. They had only needed to be brave enough to sound the alarm,